challenges, and also the triumphs, of entrepreneurship communities and hubs around the nation, around nations, continents, and the world at large. All right, so briefly, I want to introduce the moderator for today's event. He will be moderating the panel section. So join me as I welcome Mr. Kayode Babarinde. So Mr. Kayode is the Executive Director of the API, that's the African Blockchain Institute. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife in Nigeria. He also holds a Master's in Entrepreneurship Education in the University of Ibadan, still in Nigeria also. And he is currently a doctoral student of UI, that's University of Ibadan, where he's studying a PhD in Technology Entrepreneurship. All right, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and also thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Hello, everyone, can you hear me? My mic is... Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
So for today, so just briefly about what we do at ABI, the Africa Blockchain Institute. Typically what we do is build blockchain capacities across the continent, and we do that on around 3 priorities. First is the blockchain education, where we get to educate potential blockchain enthusiasts and also organizations that want to understand what blockchain technology is. And also we work around the research as well, Africa Blockchain Report, where we report what is going on and make research what's going on across some specific countries on the continent, and also allow policymakers and including businesses as well to make best use of those information to align with what they are doing. The last is deployment. We work also with startups and also policy regulatory makers as well to see how best they can actually deploy and even come up with a regulatory framework as well in terms of blockchain technology on the continent. Aside this, we also have some other programs like the Africa Blockchain Incubation Program that runs annually. And also we have the Blockchain Summer Bootcamp as well annually as well, and also the African Blockchain Hackathon Program as well. Today, we'll be talking on the understanding blockchain entrepreneurship landscape in Africa. And before then, I mean, we all know that entrepreneurship spread across several sectors, starting from the health sector down to agriculture, to supply chain, food, several other places where people can be entrepreneur to the businesses that they are running. Much more as a focal point in what we are doing here at this program today, focusing on around technology. Even though we're focusing around technology, where we have many technology leaders, entrepreneurs, and also founders as well, trying to provide solutions to the African problem. We have folks focusing around the Internet of Things, machine learning, data science, and even now focusing more around blockchain entrepreneurship. So today we'll be demystifying everything that goes around blockchain technology, starting from the foundation, and also we're joined by notable stakeholders and entrepreneurs that have actually passed through the foundation of blockchain technology and also have some stake in what blockchain technology has been so far on the continent, and able to also answer your question on bringing you guys on board on the blockchain technology ecosystem space, especially in Africa. So to join me on this panel, we have Kume Chipsa, the CEO of Afro Valley from Ethiopia. I hope I'll be getting some round of applause. So, and after all, we have Mrs. Modupe Ativi, that's the African lead for the Global Blockchain Women Alliance. And also we have Mrs. Priti Kubuye as well, the co-founder of Coronet Blockchain. So here I will have to have them to introduce themselves, tell us about yourself and also your organization, starting with Kume. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kayode. What a platform to share with amazing other blockchain women. So thank you for inviting us and also creating this platform to actually echo the importance of female in the blockchain space. My name is Kume. I'm the CEO and the founder of Afro Valley. Our company mainly focuses on farmer empowerment due to agriculture being a main sector in the African continent and an economic pillar. So we believe through farmer empowerment, we can actually bring community development and societal changes. And as part of the, let's say, the overall vision, we've launched a couple of projects. The first project is on coffee through what we call Bunako, which means our coffee, giving it a voice in terms of ownership, and then also a resource that actually we believe is a main pillar that actually connects the entire global world, sourcing from, let's say, Africa. So we believe that it has a true power to transform society in Africa and then also bring attention to the farmer that are needed the most attention. And we're backed by Web3 ecosystem, and basically where we first of all try to create trust, and then also digitize using Web3, and then also incentivize through token mechanisms, and at the same time also try to promote culture through NFT utilities. So we have other projects as well, but then I can talk about them a little bit later.
All right, thank you. So next to Ms. Modupe.
Hello, everyone. It's actually always very exciting for me to be on a forum or on a panel where we have women who are in blockchain or in Web3. It's always very exciting for me. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you, Kaede, for the invite. I have actually spoken with Pretty before, but it's really great to also meet you here, Kume, and everyone else who's joined the call. So the Global Blockchain Women Alliance is obviously our prime focus is on women and girls, but we also have a non-gender-based subsidiary where we offer career counseling, we help with recruitment, we run educational programs, we do smart contract auditing. We also have we help to develop sector-relevant blockchain solutions. So talking healthcare, agriculture, and even fashion. So we have some blockchain solutions development in those areas. We would also be launching an incubator program in 2023 to help African startups. And the idea is not just to connect them to VCs or to funding, but to also help them to also nurture them to be successful as entrepreneurs in the blockchain space.
Good, thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Pretty Kobe, did I pronounce your name well?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's not an easy surname, so it's Gubiane. Thank you so much to you and the rest of the Africa Blockchain Institute team for putting us together to do something during this very critical week. My name is Preeti Gubiane, co-founder of Coronet. I have a background in management consulting before I came into founding Coronet. Our main focus before Coronet was working with scale-ups. Those are companies that make at least $1 million and they are ready to grow. And that's the most exciting thing because Africans don't have a problem starting businesses, but when it comes to scale and growing those, that's where most of the challenges came in. So we'll discuss more on that later as to how does Coronet help in that regard.
I like that part, and we so much look forward to learn more how Coronet help entrepreneurs as well to tap into your network to see how we could grow beyond even the 1 million benchmark that you said. So guys, as we proceed in this program, please, if you have questions, I'm sure we have many questions to ask the amazing panelists. I mean, we probably set up this panel focusing on female because on the technology space, male is attracted by male, and there are actually several interesting and also expert and leading women in this space as well that we need to be celebrated and also giving enough room as well to push out to the world, tell the world what they are doing, and also bring you on board as well. So please drop your question in the chat box so that we're able to attend to it as we proceed during this discussion today. Today, I'm starting with Kume. Kume, people have been asking back and forth, especially blockchain and the misconception about blockchain. More reason why we started the Africa Blockchain Report. Almost two of you participated into it, Kume and also Pretty. Probably later in the future, we have Mutupa as well participating in our report as well. Several discussion has been around blockchain technology, the misconception, and also people want to know what is actually blockchain technology?
Very good question. For me, actually, beyond technology, for me, blockchain is a bit an ideology, because if you look at the way humans live, interact, trade, blockchain actually transforms from the current system to what we call the future system, where we actually demolish all the centralization concept and create this peer-to-peer, direct-to-connection with one another, and enabling a culture of trusting, enable the culture of collaboration, right? So for me, I see blockchain as an infrastructure and a social system where it would transform and probably take us into where we had a better world back in the days, where people actually neighbor trust each other, or someone across the other area would be willing to trade because there is this trust, right? They don't require another third party to come in and create that, trusting or working relationship, or interacting with one another. So I see, for me personally, blockchain is it's not just technology, it's a way that it's going to help us to transform as a society, driving efficiency, and then also development in a better world, and also a way to bring peace, to be honest, because then that way then we can learn to work with one another, and then be efficient and drive development. So this is the way I see blockchain.
All right, thank you. Modupe, I understand you're already working with several entrepreneurs already on the continent, starting from your internal program, the Global Blockchain Women Alliance, down to Ecolands and some other platform that you're already working with. I mean, for many of us here in this meeting, in this discussion, we like to understand, I mean, what has really been the current situation of blockchain entrepreneurship on the continent?
Okay, personally, I think that the landscape in Africa is booming. And I'm going to speak from two angles. So I'm going to speak from crypto and then also from the technology itself. So, I mean, this year, 2022, Africa was named the crypto continent because we've actually come third as a continent when you consider crypto use. Then Kenya, as a country, has the largest P2P exchange volumes in the world. When you think about Nigeria, despite the ban, which in my own opinion has only caused a surge in the way people use and trade cryptocurrencies, we still have and trade millions of dollars in volumes daily in Nigeria. Then you talk about startups, the entrepreneurs themselves. In 2021, I read some statistics last year where I know less than $50 million were invested in blockchain and crypto startups. Now, we had a lot more when we were talking about like fintech startups and other sectors, but for blockchain and cryptos, it was quite less than 50 in investments. But this year, Q1 alone, that figure has about doubled. And, I thought this is excellent. It means that the world out there is beginning to see that African entrepreneurs in the space are building viable solutions. And, there's a lot of problems when we think about our infrastructure. Africa still has a long way to go in terms of economic growth and all that. So the idea that investors can be involved and do business in an efficient and a transparent way is really very attractive. Now, this is not to say that there are no barriers in the sector or there are no barriers to entrepreneurs. We have about 34 countries. I think we have maybe 51 or so countries in Africa, but then there are about 34 of these countries who have an outright ban when it comes to crypto use or crypto trade. We have another about 17 or 15 or thereabout that have no regulatory framework in place whatsoever. So I think we have just 6 countries that have a legal or a regulatory framework in place. And obviously this impacts on the adoption and the adoption level of the technology and the use. Again, this also impacts on the knowledge base. The knowledge base is still very low. About 70% of Africans are still unaware of the potentials of this technology, and most of them still associate cryptocurrencies with scams. And what is interesting is that even those people who know, those of us of the population of Africa that understand the about cryptocurrencies or understand the value of cryptocurrencies, most of them still do not understand that there's a technology behind these currencies and there's a lot more that can be done. So I personally would say that the entrepreneurship landscape is booming, and it's time to get in. It's time to get in.
Yeah, for me as well, I'm very particular about the area of regulation that you mentioned. I mean, you said over 34 African countries don't have access, don't even have access to crypto, even typically blockchain framework. Am I correct?
Yes, you did. 34 countries have an outright ban. So there's an outright ban on crypto use, and so it's difficult to even bring up the conversation.
I mean, as an entrepreneur, is that not a problem?
Engage.
Can you hear me now?
Of course, yeah. That's why I'm identifying it as one of the barriers to the entrepreneurship landscape in Africa. It's one of the barriers that we have. Yeah, I can hear you. Did you hear me?
Yeah, it's completely well. So moving on to Pretty, this is where we would like to hear more about Coronet, because you already said earlier on, I mean, forget about working with Africa Blockchain Institute. We would like to come down to Coronet to support our individual businesses as well. So, I mean, Pretty, how does Coronet really drive, Coronet Blockchain really drive entrepreneurship?
Thank you so much for your question. I think the story of Coronet itself, it really display and covers and captures the heart of entrepreneurship in Africa, because it's a story of small beginning, moving into creating sustainable entrepreneurship and disrupting the entire industry and focusing on microdynamics. When we were approached by an ex-colleague who has been retrenched, who only had $5,000 and wanted to start a business from something that she actually, $500 rather, not 5,000, from something she actually knows, beauty products, something she consumes. So that was quite a good start for her, instead of just starting at home. So when she came to our office, it's in 2013, obviously we worked only with companies that are already bringing like $1 million. But having being on the board and on the directorship of the company, I had to put in a word for her, because sometimes we need women in management places so that there's always somebody who understands all the genders. So I was able to convince my team to say, we need to take a case. It's a small company, but there's a big potential to what she's trying to do. So from the word go, our departure point was, one, can we build a brand that in 5 years from now, in 3 years from now, we can franchise it? Two, or we can sell it for minimum $2 million, or we can actually, it will be investable. So by the time we were putting systems in place, we were already starting with the end in mind. And we actually met those targets, even though it looked like something very ambitious as we were discussing it, because fast forward within 36 months, that business that was started by a retrenched woman for $500 was bringing in $2 million. It was employing sustainably 40 staff that could buy houses and buy cars and have medical aid, like they are working for a big company, and it had 4 branches. So it was during that time and the attention that we were getting across the continent that we were like, this is the story we want to see in Africa, where one, we can start quick and start small, but grow and be sustainable. But how do we do this now quicker? How do we do this for more people in an agile way? That's when we went out there to kind of look for a solution to solve a number of problems that we were facing, because now we're facing scaling problems. One of those was the quality of the products, because you order products, we didn't have a capacity to manufacture by ourselves. We totally relied on manufacturers that were based in Asia. So how do we control the quality? And the conversations we were having with the likes of ISO, SGS, and Bureau Veritas and others, it was such that we needed minimum $5,000 just for quality compliance. And now you tell me, where is a small business in Africa is going to get that just to prove that their product is quality, to prove that they comply before they can sell their products on mainstream retail. So that really was our departure point, because we're dealing with a big retailer that wanted to stock our products, but they were like, we're not touching it unless you can provide proof that this product is the quality that you claim that it is. So that was a departure point for Coronet, because we realized that small and medium businesses, they produce lots of things. That's why I can take my phone now down the road. I can order Italian food and everything, but I wouldn't order African-based ingredients, for example, because our farmers are not included, because they don't meet those quality assurance and everything. So that's what Coronet did, to really democratize quality assurance, which is the very most important thing. If you're going to sell products, you want to know they are good quality, to really build access to market, because that's the most important thing for a business of any size, that your products are quality, that you have access to clients, that you can grow your business. So we just cover those basics with our technology.
Yeah, interesting. So I'll give an add-on question. Like now, let's say they're budding entrepreneurs that want to come on your platform. Is there any procedure for them to join Coronet Blockchain?
Yeah, so what we do, we have, because we have a supply chain solution. So we have two types of supply chain. We have a macro supply chain. So that works like a marketplace where people of any kind, like for example, we recently received funding from a blockchain protocol to build a platform where farmers can sell directly to consumers. So any farmer who has got a farm, who's doing fresh produce and meat and anything you can buy from a farmer's market, can come into our platform, as long as they are running a registered business and they have the products that they are looking for. And then you get your micro supply chain. Micro supply chain is usually supply chain that are similar to like BMW. They have BMW accredited outlets where they sell their stuff. Only a BMW accredited mechanic can fix your car. So their supply chain is more exclusive. So how we work with those, we supply our system, our software as a service. They just plug it in and to consolidate their entire supply chain so that they can make sure that at any given moment they know who's doing what, and they can track and trace their products to avoid counterfeits of car parts.
Interesting. I like that. And talking about this supply chain, back to what Kume mentioned, talking about blockchain technology, many people heard about blockchain as well. It's like a single technology that can solve everything. But looking at what Pretty said right now, and also what Coronet is saying, Coronet blockchain is also just focusing around exclusively around supply chain. Same as where other blockchain as we're focusing on payments. Some are focusing on records. Some are focusing on storage. You know, just one blockchain really can do everything. I mean, the question should remain: why is Bitcoin have not even started their own smart contract as of today? You know, there are several discussions to be had around different types of blockchain and what actually each of these blockchain are doing. And so, in the audience, if some of us are actually looking around supply chain, I think Pretty will be the best person to actually speak with, to come on board and also encourage you. Now you can move forward. So, Kumen, you have been an interesting entrepreneur so far, especially so far on blockchain technology. Now, if anything East Africa is known for is the coffee. And now I'm focusing more on Ethiopia. Ethiopia learned how the best coffee, but apparently I think Kume need to ship a copy to every one of us for us to authenticate if it's really the best coffee. Yeah, we are. And not that the fact that you're not only an entrepreneur, you are now a blockchain entrepreneur. And one thing that's come around entrepreneur is challenges. So we like to learn, I mean, from your own side, what actually the challenges being a blockchain entrepreneur in Ethiopia, East Africa, and also in Africa?
Yeah, thank you, Coyote. And also pretty quite also, I've been resonating on the kind of areas that you've been touching on: supply chain, quality, coordination, all this, because these are the kind of areas that I've been actually even observing in the coffee supply chain. Coffee business is not really a B2C, it's more a B2B model. And it's also very sophisticated compared to other products because it's a cartel, centralized, very traditional, primitive, and it's purposely designed for that because a lot of people make fortune out of it just by keeping it in their pocket and within their own circles. And for me, starting from coffee was a big challenge because initially I didn't know where I was getting or where I was going and where I was getting into because I came more from the transport sector and technology background into agriculture. And then from agriculture, from the most corrupted sector, which is coffee. People die out of hilarity from, because when I remember about a few years ago, there was financial crisis in the coffee industry and a lot of people committed suicide because of that. So you can imagine how the financial sector is also dependent on coffee. So coming into it, when I start preaching about blockchain, people are like, what is she talking about? Because the way trust is enabled was very manually and it took long time. Like people trust one another like over 10 years or 5 years to make huge transaction because minimum transaction you're looking at between two parties is about 150K. And then also for the transaction to be executed, it's not overnight or even because it's not like money that you transfer, it happens into your wallet, or it's not like a close, or it's not like something that you can do within like a short distance because coffee gets transported often from Africa to Asia or to Europe or to the US where it goes through logistics that takes about minimum 52 days. And can you imagine the heartbeat that goes through that until you receive a product that worth 150K? So people created trust, transparency through their own mechanisms. And as it is Ethiopia, it was a closed economy. And then people had their own way of creating trade channels and working with their own cartels. So when we came to this blockchain, people didn't understand the digital aspect. So digitalization or technology was very primitive and very nascent. So we had to preach the aspect of why technology. So we had to take a transformative approach and where we had to look into, first of all, how do we drive change? How do we basically promote the value? And then how does it transform the entire supply chain? Because when you create this peer-to-peer connection, you're gonna kill a whole lot of people, and those people are quite powerful than you. Then how do you create value for them? And then also, you can't just come into technology and then enable smart contract and expect two parties to trade. Impossible, because it's a lot of money, and these people are not interacting with tech when it comes to trade. So for us, the challenge was, the whole change management and the whole people understanding tech and coffee. That's number one. Then beyond tech, how do you explain to people blockchain and the value of blockchain? So we had to take a very lame approach to explain to people the whole experience of being in the blockchain space. So we had to basically be an advocate of this Web3 and explaining to people, I'm not talking even about the farmer, I'm talking about the buyer side, and create an incentive mechanisms for them to come into, let's say, the platform. And then the next aspect is the farmer side. So the whole onboarding process, because for the farmer, all he cared about is basically making money and then also getting his money quick. That's basically his the value that he wanted to get, market access, and then quick return for investment. So we had to create those spaces. So we couldn't onboard into blockchain quickly. First, we had to prove. Second, we had to even digitize, because garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have the right data, there's no way of going to blockchain. So there was a pillar that we had to follow as a part of change management before we get into the blockchain space. So we just got, after 1 year, we just landed into what we call our first smart contract interaction. Even that, we're learning a lot, because the process is not consistent, because as I told you, people found their own route to create a channel to trust, and then to also create a regulation around it. So there was no any consistent supply chain, consistent regulation. So everything was an ad hoc and customized. So imagine bringing that into a smart contract. So it took a longer time. And even for us, though, we had to create even a separate think tank to advocate in terms of having consistent regulation, basically a consistent supply chain and streamline for what we call the coffee blockchain model to work. So this was the challenge that we faced.
Interesting. I mean, as an entrepreneur, obviously, we need to have more strength as possible to be able to foresee some of these challenges and also find a way to solve it. I mean, good I mentioned about the challenge. It would have been much interesting if you told us how you're able to solve some of the challenges as well, so that we can also pick some lessons. But I'm sure when I come back to you, you'll be able to put up some of those solutions that you are able to build on those challenges. So, follow up from Kume, we have Mrs. Modupe. I want to ask, in the blockchain entrepreneurship space, you're also working around community. What's like for people coming as an entrepreneur now, focusing coming a blockchain entrepreneur? What are there even opportunities? Are there opportunities in the blockchain space? And if they are, what type of opportunities are there? And how can we even do some of these opportunities?
Okay, it's a really good question, Kayode, and this is because of all the very pertinent and important challenges that we face as a continent. So the truth is that we can use blockchain solutions. The opportunities are immense for startups and entrepreneurs out there who are able to use the blockchain technology to solve the continent's most pertinent challenges. There's so many of them. I mean, we could just think about poor and inefficient financial infrastructure. I'm here in Nigeria, and I can't very easily send money to someone in Ghana. There's so many hurdles in between, so many challenges in between, so many things you have to do. And obviously, we know that using the blockchain technology, it's easy. In a matter of minutes or seconds, it's done. So there's so many problems. We could think about different solutions that people could build to solve problems that we have here. Then we have about 400 million unbanked Africans and a lot more who are underbanked as well. And I see every one of them as an opportunity to, for entrepreneurs to build solutions, to include them. I'm hearing now about Pretty's solution in Coronet blockchain to include farmers. They could be underbanked and they could be unbanked, but here they have an opportunity to cut out the middlemen, because I've also been involved in some agricultural projects, and there are sometimes so many middlemen, and then the farmers don't get enough compensation. But here with the blockchain technology, there's transparency along the way. You cut out a lot of these middlemen, and then they can get better compensation for their hard work and for their effort. So think also about the regulatory landscape. There's so much opportunity there. There's little or no regulation. And I believe that once the governments begin to see that this cannot be ignored, and they just have to come up with a way to work with this. There's opportunity as well in the regulatory space. So I believe that entrepreneurs out there will be solving real problems as they pick up the ideas and, you know, build solutions to meet all these needs, even in the space of education, because I have been okay, I started my career in quality assurance, compliance, and, you know, regulation. So compliance is very big for me as well, regulation and framework. So that's something I'm very heavily invested in as well. But beyond that, I got involved in learning and development, and I've done that for about 12 years now. So even in the educational space, there's so much opportunity to help Africans understand this technology, understand the benefits and the potentials, and, you know, how to get them to position appropriately. There's also remote work. I believe that in a few years, and it started already, Africans will also begin to be one of the highest employers of labor. The unemployment rates will drop. Dubai has listed that they would have in 2030 about 42,000 remote jobs. And these are jobs that will be spread across the world. India will have, I think, about 800,000 they listed in 2030. So we would also get to that position when we have startups where we can employ. I, for instance, could employ people working for me in East Africa and Northern Africa, Southern Africa, wherever. So I believe that the opportunities are here to stay for entrepreneurs to build solutions that, you know, could transform most of these very pertinent challenges. The opportunities are limitless.
Okay, so there are many opportunities in the blockchain space, and also any tech leader or entrepreneurs can actually tap into space and come and do some awesome work solving the African problem.
Definitely.
Okay, so Pretty, coming from the background of Coronet, we've read so much good news from that part, and I'm sure you've worked with several entrepreneurs, and we like to ask, so far, what are the things an entrepreneur now moving towards being a blockchain entrepreneur and from the background of Coronet blockchain, what are the things that they should watch out for coming in this platform?
Thank you so much. So blockchain might be new, but entrepreneurship has been around for a very long time. So a whole lot of things we have to look out for. We don't have to invent them. So I often advise to say somebody must look out for the very thing that make unicorn. One, most unicorn companies that reach $1 billion in a period of like 3 to 5 years, they solve real problems. They focus on the bigger market, and they have a good ecosystem around them. If I can just expand on the solving of real problem. So for blockchain to thrive, specifically in Africa, what you must look out for is to solve problems that are faced by a number of people. For example, industries, agriculture is the number one, is the most employer in the continent, is the most critical industry as well, because it touches on food security. And then we have finance, and then we have trade, that's the movement of goods of any kind. So focusing first and foremost on the industries that will create the most impact is very important. Secondly, as well, it is focusing on the big market. Again, agriculture, it always come on top, because I think in about 632 Saturdays, we'll have 2 billion Africans that are hungry every day and they need food. And somebody has to find a way to get food to them quick and faster and cheaper, but safe. So tapping into that, because I believe by 2030, the agriculture industry will reach $1 trillion. So as you can see already, it's a big market. It's growing pretty fast. And then the last thing I have mentioned before is finding your tribe, finding an ecosystem that enables your growth on a macro level. Find industry associations, find training institutions to belong to, because usually when opportunities come from outside, funders and stakeholders don't go on Google and look for a blockchain company. They look for industry association, because especially if you are starting up, only your character can speak for you, because you don't have volumes of numbers to prove anything. Therefore, you'd actually need a big brother or a big sister in terms of industry associations, incubators, accelerators that can actually say something about you. So that's the first place where opportunities go knocking. It looks at ecosystem, because it's somebody who come from the outside. And I think on a micro level, on your granular personal level as well, find people that are doing really big things in the blockchain industry, because some of the countries that are in first world countries, they are far ahead. So the world now is digital, so you can find a mentor anywhere, you can find friends anywhere and everywhere that are actually doing live and active projects, because it's blockchain may sound, or any project rather in technology, it sounds easy on paper, but there's lessons that you can never learn on the desktop, on the internet. You only get to learn and like Gome, the understanding she has of coffee supply chain, she had to be fully hands-on. That's why you can't touch her on that just because you read some white paper somewhere. So having to have somebody like her who understand that industry, it saves you lots of mistakes that could be very much expensive.
Interesting. I guess many entrepreneurs listening will actually be on the watch out for these lessons that you mentioned. I think I'll just pause here. There have been several bots on the chat. Michael, hand over to you in a short time to see if there's any questions from the audience. Those are also unmute themselves as well, can also ask the question directly to the speakers, panelists. So Michael.
All right, thank you very much. So it's been an interesting session so far. I've learned a lot. Coming from the panelists. All right, so there's no question precisely. Although we've been getting some comments, particularly from Anne George. So she was making some comments about Coronet. You know, I mean she gave a thumbs up to the team from Coronet, particularly seeing how farmers can, you know, join in this system, in blockchain system via Coronet. But so far, we don't have any questions. So if you have any question, please just feel free to send a comment or your questions on the chat. And then while dropping that, please drop your names and then your details like your location and then which organization you are affiliated with, so we could collect these informations. All right.
Okay, moving on for the last batch of questions. Kume, I remember on this discussions, several back and forth has been raised around the opportunities of blockchain, opportunities in the continent, and also investment-wise. And also coming back to you in terms of your background in the coffee business, entrepreneur, blockchain entrepreneur, what can you say around investment, around blockchain investment to startups on the continent?
Yeah, actually, Lupe give a good clarity in terms of how blockchain is like thriving in Africa, especially in the crypto space. But then for me, when I started, I mentioned about seeing blockchain as an infrastructure. When you build infrastructure like road, it requires a lot of investment, because I go back to iterate again, when we rolled out the supply chain for coffee, it required us a lot of effort to drive change. So it's not like as it is like, you know, building blockchain with all right now, the labor cost to bring in a developer, it costs a lot of money, let alone driving the change. So a lot of the funding that I saw are very like limiting between 50 to 100K an average. And that shows for me that the industry doesn't want to take a risk, right? So they want to start from small investment and then see how you progress. For us, that was a bit challenging, because you need a larger pool of investment for you to exercise the power of innovation, for you to fail or pivot, right? So we had to, for us, how we get funding and how do we utilize our capital. It was very tricky. because the cost is not just tech, the cost is the entire transformation. So when it comes to those, there's not, for me, there's not those huge investment that I've seen yet. But then also that might be because of the wrong perception around blockchain and how it's seen was attached mainly with crypto. And then also policy matters as well, right? For example, if I come to Ethiopia, policy is very stringent. And if we go and preach to even a lot of like the high investment, infrastructure investment that's led by government, and you tell them about blockchain, they'd be like, oh, are you talking about Bitcoin? So so building that understanding, first of all, that blockchain, they need it as an infrastructure to transform, the way things are run. I think that might help, first of all, for us to advocate to get those fundings that they put in towards road or towards like those high investments requiring infrastructure. So I think it will take some time before we get, I think, the right investment allocation when it comes to blockchain. And then also, how Coordinate is doing, software as a service. I think that's the future, because network effect is important for blockchain to be effective, because it's bridging an efficiency, it's bringing a lot of coordination. And if everybody's going and launching their own protocol, launching their own, corner blockchain, then at the end of the day, we're going back, right? So actually having, again, the bigger picture and then bringing that interoperability and then driving that strategy from nation or even from East Africa point of view, and then bringing those ecosystem and seeing it as infrastructure requires a lot of investment. And I think we're yet to see that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, talking about the larger ecosystem space, which actually might contribute or not contribute towards investment I would just discuss. Apparently, there has been several investment on the continent, but again, talking about blockchain probably is a growing space. There's a record of CBVCs coming is already in South Africa. I'm sure PT is aware. And also, there are some other investment vehicle already looking at Africa, according to what Modupe has said. Probably again, coming from the larger perspective, if we couple ourselves together, probably we can even amass much more investment, which will even direct my question down to Modupe. I know you run some communities, and talking about even blockchain communities on the continent, we have the Nigerian blockchain people, we have folks in Egypt, we have Tunisia, we have Ghana, we have Kenya, we have South Africa, we have several other people just spread across, using the word from Kume, like silos and every other place. So, Modupe, is this the way blockchain is meant to continue, or is there any way we can like collaborate, which is part of the main theme of this discussion of this Global Entrepreneurship Week? Is there any way we can synergize from each of this part, from north to south to east and west, or we just continue to work in silo, if that will help each other part? So again, back to community, how does community work on the continent, and is there possible for us to collaborate?
Great. I think that one of the most important things, or one of the most beautiful things about being an African is we have a very deep sense of community individually. And, when it comes to the blockchain and the Web3 space, the very concept of decentralization depends on that there are a group of people and not just one person. So it is, I think there's a common saying that if you walk alone, you will go well or something like that. But if you work together, you can go, I think it says if you walk alone, you may go far, but if we work together, then it ends better. So definitely the concept of community is non-negotiable. In Web3 and in blockchain, the community is as important as the product that you have. So definitely, you just mentioned in Nigeria, we have lots of communities. There's a major organization of Nigeria, and it's amazing. It's an amazing platform. The networking and all that comes from that platform. Here you get to know who's involved in what, and then there's a go-to person for every single aspect. So communities are really, really important. I think one of the things that we can do for the African continent, an organization like yourselves, the Africa Blockchain Institute, is provide a forum like this. We have and are building communities on our own. And right here in Nigeria, my community for GBWA and some other communities that I've been involved in, it's like over maybe about 5,000 people or more. So the opportunities to build and to scale are really, really large. When we have communities, it's even easier to sell whatever products, projects that you have. So I think that we should continue to work together and expand and deepen our sense of community.
Okay. And also, lastly, to come pretty almost similar to what was asked to Mudukbe, but now you're talking around now. Damuduka identified several of these players from different parts of Africa. So how can we all collaborate? Pretty. Your mic is mute.
Sorry, I just realized I was on mute. So the startup ecosystem is the most critical when it comes to this, and we need to learn to organize much better. I can show you a contrast between two organizations. Well, one is a country. For example, in America, every year, about 500,000 businesses they start, and then 3 years from there, only 20% of those businesses will still be operating, and only 6% of those would have been funded. So if America still has got 80% failure rate and 96% chances that you're not going to get funding, them having they have a pretty good startup ecosystem. They've got Silicon Valley, but still, they still have that failure rate at 80%, which is very disappointing. But the contrast where you look at companies like Y Combinator, for example, Y Combinator started in 2005. And since they've opened, they've had about 3,000 companies. And guess what? Only 9% of those companies actually failed. Almost every unicorn you can think about, your Airbnb, Coinbase, a number of them, they come from the hands of those. And it was just started by a couple and a friend. And one of the things that causes them to be very successful in what they do, one, it's easy for them, because when you collaborate, it's easy to learn best practice. And well, worst practice, I don't know if there's such a word, but it's easy for you to actually know why companies fail, so that we don't keep repeating the same mistake. Two, they are very holistic in their approach. We often bring that up because we build technologies for other companies as well, and we come from the perspective of growing other companies. We often say that focusing on the rider, the horse, and the track is the way to go. What they do, they focus on developing the entrepreneur, the business itself, and the landscape. The things that they start, they become really, really big. And also they have a good ecosystem. If you are part of the program, chances that you're going to get your Series A funding are more than 50%, which is something that is not really happening. So with that being said, there's three key players in a startup ecosystem. That is academia, and also people like yourself that are also doing training. There's formal academia for long type of studying your degrees and everything. There's macro credentialing, where you get short courses and you actually learn. And then research and development, it falls under that as well. And then you get your implementation, which is entrepreneurs like ourselves, who are actually using technologies in industry, which is industry. And then you get government. So all of these guys, they're doing their thing separately. So to run an effective ecosystem, we need to actually run something together. For example, I love supply chains, because it could be a supply chain that runs across 5 countries, but if it runs on a blockchain, for example, when somebody is done, if somebody places an order, It tells the other company, which is a logistic company, that the order is ready, you can come and pick it up. But why is it that if I'm in an incubator, there is no way of saying this is how Pretty is progressing in this incubator, and in 6 months' time, she would have finished building her MVP, she would have had this number of users in her platform, she will need this kind of funding, and this is her character reference on how she has been doing, and then match you with the next funder for your next phase to be able to do that, so that not everybody is doing everything on their side. So that's the one. We need to use the technology itself to be able to collaborate to make sure that that move from ideation to making your business at seed, series A and upward is actually seamless. Everybody speak to one another. I'll make the last example. Just 2 roads from our offices is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and every year 50 billion in rents it's spent on supplier development. It's just developing entrepreneurs of any kind. But guess what? After 20 years, only 6% is represented by Black people in that. Like, everybody is asking, but what happened? Because there's no accountability, there's no way of checking if it's working. But why have we been spending 50 billion for 20 years, for every 20 years, but progress is not being seen? Because everybody's doing their own thing. Nobody's accountable to anybody, and whatever that they do, they just do it, and it's just there. They can't come together and actually be productive and work together towards a goal where we see more and more businesses that are sustainable. Because, like it or not, Africa can no longer afford having informal businesses and hustle. We need to build businesses that are actually sustainable, that provide good jobs. Our employees deserve medical aids, they deserve housing subsidies, no hand to mouth, and that's not going to happen if we're not working together.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a general question I like to ask. So far, I don't think we've actually talked based around our government role around this technology that we are working in, being entrepreneur and also blockchain. I like to throw a general question to all of the panelists right now. So, I mean, do you think government actually need to play a role for blockchain technology to be fully adopted or to be utilized, or we don't need government at all? Anyone can start.
I don't think government would be interested in the concept of blockchain. It would go against the centralization and command and control model. But I think if they give us that safe haven for people to innovate, I think that would be good enough. That's the only space that I would say that they should come in. Obviously, regulation is important based on what we're hearing, but then I think not direct engagement in terms of the technology itself.
Okay,
Yeah, I have to agree with Kume there. I think the only space where we need government is regulation, legal regulation, and a framework to make people comfortable enough to be able to want to work and invest in the sector. But beyond regulation, I don't think we really need the government.
I'm pretty.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree as well. Government, their job is really to create an enabling environment. Otherwise, they're not the key player, especially from a startup perspective. But as you grow, you really need to have good regulation.
I say, because what I'm asking, typically what blockchain typically consume more is our record. And many of our records are in the government, and starting from our date of birth, marriage certificate, health certificate, and every other thing. The government have them. And beyond regulation, I mean, won't it make sense for them to also be a player to help us archive some of this record securely, which is what promise of blockchain is?
But that's more, I would say that's more from an application point of view. But when it comes to the actual infrastructure, driving the technology, maybe not. But they're more, they see the user. But then you're right, as a supply actor, they need to inject the collaboration or the data or what's required, whether it's Web3 or Web2, right? So it's not specific to this blockchain, But then when it comes to digitalization, the whole digital transformation aspect, they need to be an actor. But when it comes to Web3 specifically, or maybe blockchain, I don't know.
Interesting. What about you, Peter?
I share the same sentiment as well. Like I'll make an example. About a year ago, I was approached by a government institution and they wanted to provide funds for Coronet. And last week, they just approached me and they said they are ready to move forward. And guess what? They want to offer me 3,500 US dollars. Like after a year, a burn rate for a blockchain company is 20,000 US dollars every year. You're gonna take every month. You're gonna take 1 year to get back to me about 3,000 US dollars. Like, why?
You can't blame them. They're the government. That's what they have. Interesting. So the last general question is the current buzz around FTX. We have no FTX issue right now, and to my extent, actually, from regulatory perspective as well, be more reason why 34 countries on the continent are not really supporting blockchain. Be more reason why those are even supporting blockchain are even issuing out several announcements and articles against you being part of the blockchain ecosystem, specifically cryptocurrencies ecosystem. So now, how do you want to take around FTX, and how do you think FTX will not really contribute negatively to the vibe of blockchain on the continent? Kuma, you can give a take on that. Your mic is mute.
Yeah, my network was a little bit disrupted. Can you quickly repeat
Yeah,
that?
I was asking about the FTX situation. Like, is there any way it could really affect the blockchain space itself? Probably in Africa.
No, I think maybe there is a lesson learned that maybe some of us can learn from that and maybe pivot. But then I think that's part of the technology evolution or the application evolution, and also for policymakers to take a lesson from that, because I mean there are a lot of good news. Look at Ethereum forking. So I think people are making a punch and making a big deal out of it just by this story, but there is a lot of good stories out there where Algorand is progressing a lot and bringing good impact in the ecosystem. Look at Ethereum forking. And so quite frankly, I didn't even dig into the FTX things because I saw this popularism around the guy rather than even why the thing failed and what we can do to avoid it. And the target, the media is just focusing on the guy and his ego and then the kind of words that he was using. So for me, I paid less attention, to be honest. We just have to move on.
All right. So any last word as we are going? I think we're already done. Any last word, comment?
No, but I'm glad, Coyote, that for you to bring this team together, because now I'm actually eager even to reach out to the girls to learn a lot more and to actually even advocate in terms of what the future blockchain would be and what the continent can do, and then also how a lot of other women and youth can actually capitalize from what we've developed so far. So thank you for bringing everyone together.
All right. Modupe, the mic is mute. Any last words?
Yeah, so I think the best thing I'm going to say now is I believe that the bear market is the builder's market. So get in now and build and plan to scale before the bull market comes in. So yeah, let's all get in there. There's a lot of opportunity and out there, people we can look at, even virtually. We may not need to connect with them one-on-one and implement solutions everywhere. So yeah, that's my final one. The bear market is the builder's market. Get in there and build.
All right, thank you. Pretty, any last word?
Thank you so much for having me. I totally agree as well that we can't really wait for the right time to start and focus on the negative of what is happening. There's a whole lot of positive things that are happening in the blockchain space, and we're not going to find out about it by just watching. We have to go and get things done. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Although, I mean, we are very much in a little way. We have many people that already subscribe and also try to engage, but probably the time might not be enough. But the good thing about this program is that it's recorded and we always put on our platform, so we can also go back and also refresh the memory on these resources that the panelists actually contributed towards this program. Thank you again very much, everyone, for joining. Look forward to seeing you physically this time next year. Here in Rwanda at our office, and also able to engage with the rest of entrepreneurs here in Rwanda and the rest of Africa. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a very good afternoon. Thank you. Bye.
And